soldiers have positioned at the base of the Capitol steps. Let's listen in. And there you can see the beautiful east front of the United States Capitol. As the sun is setting here in our nation's capital, Jimmy Carter returns there to be memorialized by lawmakers and the Vice President of the United States. And as we watched this incredible procession, we were reminded by Robert Costa, following his curiosity, asking when was the last time a president gave an inaugural address from the East Front. And we learned
that President Carter did deliver that inaugural address as his casket was being brought up to the rotunda. There's Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh, Kagan, Chief Justice Roberts. We saw former Speaker Nancy Pelosi, whose family was an important force back in 1976. Though, as she has often said, her family was for Jerry Brown in that race, but ultimately became a friend, of course, of President Carter, as so many top Democrats did.
And as the family makes its way into the rotunda for the remarks, there are members of the cabinet there as well. The Defense Secretary is there, Lloyd Austin, and some of the most notable guests, Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming, Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia, Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia, some of our newest senators as well there, the mayor of Washington, D.C. The rotunda sits in between, and for many visitors in Washington will know and familiar with the U.S. Capitol, in between the House and the Senate. And I imagine there will be a number of members from the Carter Center who will be inside the rotunda and at the Washington National Cathedral on Thursday for that state funeral. Senator Dick Durbin, Senator Amy Klobuchar, Senator Susan Collins. I could go on, Senator Tom Tillis, Ted Cruz, Jeanne Shaheen. I'm just pointing out the front row in many ways, all of them. Senator Jack Reed, the longtime chair of the Senate Armed Services Committee. John Ossoff from one of the younger senators there, the two senators from Georgia there in the front row as well. Just about everybody packed inside. Senator Warnock, a minister himself, as well as members of the House of Representatives.
And if you see that raised box in the center of the rotunda there, it really has a connection, a deep connection to American history. It's the same, they call it a catafalque, where President Abraham Lincoln lied in 1865 following his assassination attempt. And it's a special piece of American history to be connected to the presidency, one of the greats, and Abraham Lincoln, now to a great man in Jimmy Carter and the life he lived.
And there, the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, as well as the First Gentleman, Doug Emhoff, right next to the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson.
And of course, Jimmy Carter said he was hoping to stay alive to see Kamala Harris elected President of the United States. It's one of his last things to get to vote for her. Of course, that didn't come to fruition, but it tells you that he was politically engaged to the very end.
Voting by mail, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I read that.
Senate Majority Leader John Thune there in the center, from a small town just like President Carter, Murdo, South Dakota.
Mm. Next to him, his wife, and then Senator Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader in the House of Representatives. And then you can see, as was pointed out earlier, some of the members of the Supreme Court just behind the Vice President and her husband, as everyone turns to face the honor guard, honorary pallbearers. Those are the Joint Chiefs.
Ready, face. Full forward, march.
Let us pray. Eternal Father, strong to save, whose arms have bound the restless waves, we thank you for the inspiration of a consequential and laudable life as we celebrate the legacy of James Earl Carter, Jr., the 39th President of the United States. We proclaim your generosity to this nation and world for giving us the gift of someone with the ethical congruence to be salt and light to his generation. Lord, he made the world more palatable. We thank you for his passion for integrity his commitment to leave the world better than he found it, and his exemplary love for his precious Rosalind. Inspired by his great life, teach us to know you more clearly, to love you more dearly, and to follow you more nearly each day. We pray in your matchless name. Amen.
Madam Vice President, Mr. Speaker, Leader Schumer, Leader Jeffries, Jack, Chip, Jeff, Amy, and other members of the Carter family, and distinguished guests. Today we gather to begin a final farewell to Jimmy Carter, Navy veteran, peanut farmer, Governor of Georgia, and President of the United States. Sunday school teacher, Nobel Prize winner, advocate for peace and human rights, and first and foremost, a faithful servant of his Creator and his fellow man. In a commencement speech he delivered at Liberty University back in 2018, President Carter told a story about going on a mission to Massachusetts back in his younger days under the auspices of the Southern Baptist Convention. During that trip, President Carter was impressed by the success of a fellow missionary in winning souls to Christ. And so as the mission was winding down, he asked him what made him so successful. He was a little embarrassed by my question, President Carter recalled, but then he finally said, "I try to have two loves in my heart. One love is for God, and the other love I have in my heart is for the person who happens to be in front of me at any particular time." It was a statement, President Carter said, that he never forgot. And I think it's fair to say that it's also a statement he lived by. President Carter's term as president ended in 1981. And for the remainder of his life, the longest post-presidency of any American president ever, he focused on making the lives of his fellow men better. That meant things like the Carter Center, which, among other things, works for the eradication of disease in some of the poorest areas of the globe. And it meant things like his work with Habitat for Humanity to provide affordable housing for those in need. And when I say his work with Habitat for Humanity, I do mean his work. Jimmy Carter knew that his status as a former president could bring attention to good causes. It's why he encouraged Habitat to make use of his name and image. But simply lending his name, or maybe attending a gala or two, wasn't Jimmy Carter's style. He was here to get down in the weeds and the dirt, and he did that literally on numerous Habitat builds, including one back in 1994 in Eagle Butte in my home state of South Dakota. Well into his 90s, he could be found with his hard hat and tools on construction sites doing the practical work required to get families into homes. The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. And Jimmy Carter did his very best to live according to the calling of his Lord and Savior. Today, I join all Americans in mourning President Carter and remembering his example. But I rejoice in the thought that he, together with his beloved wife, Rosalind, is now before the face of his Father.
To the family, to Jack and Chip and Jeff and Amy, the entire Carter family, Vice President Harris, members of the Cabinet, Leader Thune, my colleagues in Congress, and my fellow citizens. We meet in this sacred hall of self-government to honor an extraordinary man, a man who modeled the virtues of service and citizenship, as well as any other American. Surrounding us are the statues of those who gave their time, their energy, and their lives for the good of America. Before us lays a man who now joins their midst as a patriot, a veteran, a humanitarian, and the 39th President of the United States. When Jimmy Carter walked out on the east front of the Capitol and took his oath of office, I was just 4 years old, and he's the first president that I remember. Looking back, it's obvious now to me as an adult why he captured everyone's attention. Jimmy Carter was a member of the greatest generation. He lived through the Great Depression. He did that on a farm in rural Georgia. He knew the value of a dollar, and he modeled thrift his entire life. As long as he was in office, he hated government waste. His father, an Army veteran of the World War I era, taught patriotism to his children. And eventually his son, this young man from Plains, followed his father's example of self-sacrifice, and he joined the Naval Academy in the middle of World War II. In the Army, Lieutenant Carter learned from the legendary Admiral Rickover to always do his best as he served on the first fleet of nuclear submarines. It's telling that today the USS Jimmy Carter, a top-secret attack submarine, now roams the oceans, bearing the name of the only president who served in such close quarters. President Carter's life, his selfless service, his fight against cancer, and his lasting contributions to his fellow man are all truly remarkable. Whether he was in the White House or in his post-presidential years, as was discussed, President Carter was willing to roll up his own sleeves to serve and get the job done. We all know about his work with Habitat for Humanity, and that was mentioned. And the origin story goes that it was in 1984, when he first became aware of the work. He was in New York for a friend's anniversary. Millard Fuller, the founder of the fledgling charity at the time, called President Carter and asked if he wanted to visit a site in Brooklyn during his trip. President Carter agreed, and he found his way down to the Lower East Side. Standing on the roof of a dilapidated building, he looked out on the wealth of Wall Street to the south and to the power of Midtown Manhattan to the north. And then he looked down, and he saw an image he'd never forget. An elderly woman cooking breakfast over an open fire in the rubble of the building, there in the heart of the richest city in the world. The Habitat for Humanity worker that was there with him turned to President Carter and said, if there's anything that you can do, we would take it. He said, if there's anything I can do, let me know. The worker said, well, maybe you can send some volunteer carpenters from your church. It was the very next day that President Carter called Habitat for Humanity and told them he was going to send some carpenters, all right, and that he himself would be one of them. And thus began his famous tradition of donating 1 week every year to build and restore homes for his fellow Americans. It's remarkable to think that one of the 45 men who has served as president, and one of the only 13 who held the role in the nuclear age, would humble himself to such service. We all know that his care for humanity didn't stop at building homes. In the face of illness, President Jimmy Carter brought life-saving medicine. In the face of conflict, he brokered peace. In the face of discrimination, he reminded us that we are all made in the image of God. And if you were to ask him why he did it all, he would likely point to his faith. I'm reminded of his admonition to, quote, live our lives as though Christ were coming this afternoon, and of his amazing personal reflection. Quote, if I have one life and one chance to make it count for something. We all agree that he certainly did. So today in these hallowed halls of our republic, we honor President Carter, his family, and his enduring legacy that he leaves, not only upon this nation, but upon the world.
Leader Thune, Speaker Johnson, Leader Schumer, Leader Jeffries, members of Congress, and distinguished guests. It is an honor to be with you this afternoon, and to Jack, Chip, Jeff, Amy, and Jason, and all the other members of the Carter family. On behalf of the American people, Doug and I offer our deepest condolences. Being with you today, I'm reminded of the enduring words of a favorite hymn. May the works I have done speak for me. Today we gather to celebrate the life of a man whose works will echo for generations to come. A man from Plains, Georgia, who grew up without electricity or running water and served as the 39th President of the United States of America and lived every day of his long life in service to the people. President James Earl Carter, Jr. So I was in middle school when Jimmy Carter was elected president, and I vividly recall how my mother admired him, how much she admired his strength of character, his honesty, his integrity, his work ethic and determination, his intelligence, and his generosity of spirit. We have heard much today and in recent days about President Carter's impact in the 4 decades after he left the White House. Rightly so. Jimmy Carter established a new model for what it means to be a former president and leaves an extraordinary post-presidential legacy. From founding the Carter Center, which has helped advance global human rights and alleviate human suffering, to his public health work in Latin America and Africa, to his tireless advocacy for peace and democracy around the globe. And Jimmy Carter was the President of the United States who was ahead of his time. He was the first President of the United States to have a comprehensive energy policy, including providing some of the first federal support for clean energy. He also passed over a dozen major pieces of legislation regarding environmental protection, and more than doubled the size of America's national parks, including protecting our beloved redwoods in my home state of California. He was a president who, between the years of 1977 and 1981, appointed more Black Americans to the federal bench than all of his predecessors combined, and appointed 5 times as many women. And in the wake of Watergate, Jimmy Carter passed historic ethics legislation to help rebuild America's faith in government. Jimmy Carter, as president, was also a respected global leader. To be sure, the years of his presidency were not without international crises or challenges, but his legacy of global leadership is well established. In Asia, he instituted full diplomatic relations with China, which he would later call one of the most historically significant accomplishments of his presidency. And his legacy lives on in the Middle East because, do recall, in the decades before Jimmy Carter became president, Israel and Egypt had been at war numerous times. Few thought peace could be achieved between them. Yet Jimmy Carter did that. Through his persistence and perseverance, through his unshakable belief in the power of American diplomacy, he secured the Camp David Accords, one of the most significant and durable peace treaties since World War II. And throughout the world, Jimmy Carter elevated the role of human rights in America's foreign policy priorities and uplifted the importance of civil society in doing that work. Jimmy Carter was a forward-looking president with a vision for the future. Consider his establishment of the Department of Energy in 1977, which anticipated the central role it would play in addressing the climate crisis. His creation of FEMA in 1979, which enabled our nation to mobilize a national response to disasters, which has helped countless communities rebuild and recover. And his founding of the Department of Education later that year, which elevated public education institutions and increased national standards for the education of America's children and future leaders. Jimmy Carter was that all too rare example of a gifted man who also walks with humility, modesty, and grace. Recall the stories from the 1976 campaign about how he slept in the homes of his supporters to share a meal with them at their table and to listen to what was on their minds. How on their first trip for Habitat for Humanity, Jimmy and Rosalind rode the bus with the other volunteers. And when the group stopped for the night to stay at a local church, Jimmy and Rosalind gave their private room to a young couple who had put off their honeymoon to join the trip. And with the other volunteers, they then slept on the floor of the church basement. And then, of course, his work to eradicate the vicious guinea worm disease that once disabled millions of people a year. It was one of the Carter Center's greatest triumphs. And Jimmy Carter, of course, given his nature, attributed its success not to his own leadership, but to the thousands of everyday Africans who were on the ground doing the work. Throughout his life and career, Jimmy Carter retained a fundamental decency and humility. James Earl Carter Jr. loved our country. He lived his faith, he served the people, and he left the world better than he found it. And in the end, Jimmy Carter's work and those works speak for him, louder than any tribute we can offer. May his life be a lesson for the ages and a beacon for the future. May God bless President Jimmy Carter, and may God bless the United States of America.
Been listening to Vice President Kamala Harris delivering the eulogy for the final remembrances for the late President Jimmy Carter. This is his lying in state ceremony for the 39th President of the United States. This morning he arrived from Georgia and from the U.S. Navy Memorial. He was carried by military horse-drawn caisson to the U.S. Capitol, where he is being honored now.
Yeah, Carter died at the age of 100 last month. Tomorrow he will lie in state. Then Thursday he will receive a state funeral where President Biden will deliver a eulogy.
And if you want to see more of CBS's broadcast, we are streaming it live on our Facebook page right now.
But now we want to transition to your local news because we do have a first warn weather day in place right now. It's for the cold after this weekend's massive blizzard. You're looking live at our First Warn 5 weather tracker. Many roads still need to be cleared.
But as you can tell from our Briarcliff camera, the heavily traveled roads, well, they're now safe. You can actually see blacktop there. And though there is a chance, though, we could have another coating of snow on the ground soon. So right now we're going to go ahead and bring in First Warn 5 meteorologist Melissa Meter. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Sharon. We're still dealing with the cold. The cold continues till tomorrow. First Warn weather day in place for our Wednesday again for the bitterly cold temperatures. We look ahead, though, to our Thursday. Some of us could see some light snow showers. We could get a little bit of a light accumulation. I'll detail that, though, in full detail in my full forecast in just a few minutes. Now, this morning we dropped down to -3 degrees, but coldest wind chill, -14. This is actually the coldest morning we've had since January 20th of 2024. So it's almost been a year since we have been that cold. Now, cold once again tomorrow morning, but not quite as cold. Wednesday morning low temperatures are going to be above 0, but really between about 0 and 10 degrees. In Kansas City, we're starting off around 0. Same in Olathe, 1 in Lawrence, and 13 in Garnett. It could feel, though, as cold as 10 to 15 below, with winds between about 5 to 10, maybe 5 to 15 miles per hour. So that is going to kind of hit you like a brick wall when you head out and about in the morning. Afternoon temperatures are going to be up in the upper teens, so a little bit warmer than, what we expected 2 days ago, but overall, we're expecting warmer conditions to move in after that, and we'll use warmer in quotes because it's still going to be pretty chilly. But right now, we're at 21 degrees in Kansas City, 18 in Lawrence, 23 in Warrensburg, and 24 in Chillicothe. We are down a little bit into the teens at this point for feels like temperatures, so not as bad as we were earlier this morning or this morning. Feels like 11 right now in Kansas City. We'll detail more about when we could see relief from the cold and more on those snow chances in just a few minutes. Zach.
All right, we'll see you then, Melissa. Some wild moments caught on camera near the KC Wheel this morning. A Jeep nearly dangling over I-35 following a crash. Viewers sent in these images, including one from below showing both of the front wheels hanging over the overpass. That car appears to have gone up the snowbank around 10 this morning. The interstate was shut down for a short while. Fortunately, the driver was not hurt. We're also getting a better picture of just how many crashes Kansas City police responded to over the weekend. Once the ice started Saturday to Sunday at 6 a.m., the department responded to just over 200 car crashes. Compare that to the week before, that number was 21. Wow. 35 of those weather crashes resulted in injuries.
And school closures for Wednesday are coming into our newsroom. Some of the big districts in Missouri have just announced that they have virtual learning days tomorrow. And that includes Kansas City Public Schools, North KC, Lee Summit, Liberty, and Park Hill. Independents previously announced that they'd be closed tomorrow. We do have a full list of closures on our website. Just click closings and delays at the top of your screen. Well, at this point, I think a lot of parents, including this one right here, we are thinking, please, please let there be school tomorrow.
Well, especially today, since the extreme cold forced many of the kiddos indoors. KCTV5's Nija Hood joins us live from Blue Hawk Sports Park with how they're burning off some extra energy. Nija?
Well, guys, as you guys know, families have been cooped up in the house all weekend, staying indoors after that blizzard hit. And so for a lot of them, this is their first day getting out of the house. And so some of them that I spoke with today, they turned to recreational options like the ones offered right here at the Blue Hawk Sports Complex to keep their kids busy while school isn't in session. And the options here are just endless, you guys. Ice hockey, bowling, and arcade games. On the other side of the building here at the C26 Hub, I also spoke with students at the Blue Valley Northwest School District who say that they are back at swim practice and are hoping to eventually ease back into their normal routines.
Feeling hopeful. Hopefully I can get back to school this week. Hopefully we can keep having these practices. Hopefully it doesn't snow again. Just try and get back in the cycle of things.
Coming up on Live at 5, hear from some of those families and children who say they are making the most of today's snow day. In Overland Park, Nija Hood, KCTV5.
Yeah, not a bad way to spend a Tuesday. Nija, thank you. Kansas City firefighters battled a big fire in single-digit temperatures this morning. The building just north of Martin City Jackstack stores bulk oil supplies for a waste disposal company. KC Fire says an oil leak likely contributed to that fire. Missouri's Department of Natural Resources was called in to help contain it. No one was hurt.
And now to some awful moments in Overland Park. A man shoveling snow this morning suffers a heart attack. Overland Park Fire posted this image this morning on the news showing ambulance crews shoveling off the rest of the driveway after the man was rushed to the hospital. Now, as for the man's condition, OP Fire says that they are hoping for the best. Now, it is important to remember that this is unfortunately common because when temperatures drop, your blood pressure can constrict arteries. So here's how to stay safe. Take breaks while shoveling snow. Push the snow instead of lifting and throwing, and have someone keep an eye on you. This way that they're able to call for help.
And here's an update of Overland Park's snow response. The city says all main streets and collector streets have been treated and plowed. Snow crews continued their work throughout the day today. Night shift will be up to finish neighborhood streets tonight. The goal is to have all neighborhood streets finished by tomorrow morning.
Unfortunately, we did not get any, so we decided to pick up some kitty litter instead.
Well, that's the story. If you're looking for the essentials right now, hardware stores are running out of supplies that are in high demand. Well, we stopped by Mac True Value Hardware in Mission and spoke with two women trying to clear off their sidewalk at Karma Salon, searching for ice melt.
Honestly, I'm just glad that I remembered that kitty litter works instead.
I was honestly shocked, yeah. With the news of the storm coming, I thought we'd be a little more stocked, but there is a high demand right now, so.
And we did speak with the store owner. He says that he is flat out of ice melt, sleds, snow shovels, and ice scrapers. They're waiting on pallets of all of that to arrive at the store.
In Kansas City, the streetcar is back on its normal schedule. That means a 6 a.m. start time, and it will run until midnight tonight. During the blizzard, the streetcar was down to a route every 20 minutes. We'll be right back in just a few minutes.
A major winter storm. Chief Meteorologist Luke Doris called it a week out.
All eyes are on your weekend for a stronger system that could bring significant winter impacts.
When major weather threatens Kansas City, trust the First Warn 5 weather team.
Blizzard warning, blizzard conditions.
More crews, more information, more local live coverage.
Conditions have really deteriorated.
On air, on KCTV5.com, and streaming on every KCTV5 app. Local, live, KCTV5.
For the best fresh fish and seafood, shop Murdoch's Fish Market.
Chicken wings, catfish, shrimp, crab legs, you name it, Murdoch's has it.
Great values every day at Murdoch's. 5 easy minutes east of the plaza at 46th and Prospect.
Fixing broken garage doors, that's all we do here at Precision.
Same day, every day, all day. And we've seen it all.
Our vehicles are literally like a warehouse on wheels.
Here at Precision, we can fix your spring the same day and get you on your way.
Precision Door Service, a name you can trust.
My dad always worked hard to provide for our family. He worked at a grocery store for 18 years and then on an assembly line for another 25 years. He sacrificed a lot, including the maintenance of his own home. In 2009, years before he was able to retire, he made the decision to get new siding and windows. He called a local family-owned business that could provide him with siding and windows that would fit his modest budget. Who did he call? He called Jerry O'Neill at Continental Siding. Years later, now my dad is retired, and he has a beautiful maintenance-free home that keeps him off of a ladder, and he's nice and warm during those cold winter months. I believed in Jerry and Continental Siding so much, I ended up working for him. And eventually, I was fortunate enough to be able to take out a loan and buy the company. To this day, years after becoming the owner, I always remember my dad's story and how much it means to him to pull into his driveway and really love his home. And that's why it's our mission at Continental Siding to help you love your home.
Realizing that you or a family member needs help can be overwhelming, but you're not alone. I'm Cammie.
And I'm Scott with Right at Home.
Let's start talking about living.
Want to level the playing field against the giant insurance company? Call Brown & Crouppen.
For the best fresh fish and seafood, shop Murdoch's Fish Market.
Murdoch's is so easy to get to. They have great service and the best fresh fish and seafood in Kansas City.
Great values every day at Murdoch's. 5 easy minutes east of the plaza at 46th and Prospect.
Kansas City isn't exactly known for snowboarding, but after this weekend's massive winter storm, a group of pro snowboarders made their way here to shred the streets of KC.
Oh boy, did they ever. Let's go to KCTV5's Gianni Navarro. She caught up with them and she joins us now live from 11th and Euclid. Hi, Gianni.
Yeah, hi, Sharon and Zach. These group of pro snowboarders came down to Kansas City about a few days ago after keeping track of this huge winter storm we had for over a week. Now, they wanted to do this. Drop! They wanted to try new tricks on fresh snow in unique places, but as you can see, sometimes it's not all perfect, you guys. Well, he wants to try it again. You want to try it one more time?
Wait, do we need a homie toe? Do you need a homie pull? Bro toe?
Let's see, guys, if he can pull off this trick. He really wanted to show you. This is live TV at its finest. All right, guys, give him a little second to strap up in his snowboard. Let's see if he can do it. Let's all cheer him on. There we go. All right, guys. These are the tricks they wanted to show. Now these pros. There you go.
Get there, get your hoodies.
All right, guys. They say they'll be out here until nightfall. Back to you guys in studio.
Oh my gosh.
My stomach dropped.
Gianni.
Literally, you yelled drop, but my stomach dropped watching that. That's crazy. Thank you, Gianni. Well, you might have also seen this video by now as well. It's been going viral on social media. We've finally gotten access to use it. So take a look as a driver bails out of their moving car. This happened during Saturday's ice storm right here in Kansas City off I-29. And you can see the driver almost lose balance as their car slides into a ravine. Now, good news here is that they're not hurt. The car got pulled from the ravine yesterday.
Well, that winter storm also turning deadly. At least 5 people have been killed in crashes in Kansas and Missouri since the storm. One of those crashes was in Ellsworth County, Kansas. That's west of Junction City along I-70. A man was backed over by a semi as he was trying to help that driver. The semi was stuck in a snowdrift. The semi driver was not hurt.
We've got so many hilly roads here that don't see the light of day.
Well, those hilly roads have created some crummy driving conditions in the Ozarks region. You just heard an official describe road conditions in Camdenton, Missouri. Fire trucks have had to step up, reaching places police cars they can't even attempt. Officials there say there's also been several slide-off crashes in the area. Well, we still have more First Warn Weather Day coverage this hour, but for immediate alerts, our First Warn 5 weather app will keep you safe. You can download anywhere apps are found, and we'll be right back with Melissa's full forecast.
KCTV5 News is sponsored in part by Price Chopper. You have to see it. You have to hear it. You have to experience next-gen TV to believe it. And now you can watch KCTV